Now let's get into our final session with Dr. Gaber, Dr. Mazey, Dr. Livingston, and Dr. Bauer. And to do that, I would like to introduce Beth Graffing, our facilitator for our keynote. Beth, our panel today is on leadership and collaboration in higher education. Beth has been working in the field of marketing for nearly 10 years and has had the pleasure of working for some of the best employers in our area, including SSOE, Libby, and most recently the Andersons as a business process analysis. Please welcome Beth Graffing.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Epic Toledo, for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. And I also want to give a shout out to the Andersons. Thank you for letting me out of work early. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Anyway, on today's discussion, we're going to be talking about leadership and collaboration in higher education. Try saying that 3 times fast. I did try in the mirror a few minutes ago 3 times fast, and I got a few looks. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce our presidents of some of the best institutions also in the area. So to my right here, I've got Dr. Mike Bauer, president of Owens Community College. And we've got also Dr. Sharon Gaber, the University of Toledo. Dr. Mary Ellen Mazey, president of Bowling Green State University. And finally, Dr. David Livingston, president of Lourdes University. Thanks to all of you for joining us here today. I really appreciate your time. I know it's very critical, so we appreciate you being here. How about we kick off this afternoon panel by each of you kind of introducing yourselves and giving us like a little 2-minute introduction about you and you know, how we came to being the president. So we're going to kick that off with Dr. Bauer.
Okay, very good. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, very good. You know, it's very interesting. I grew up in Southern Ohio, and my whole focus when I was growing up in high school, I worked for both my uncles. Dairy farm. I wanted to be in agriculture, and could not get the money to go to school like a lot of students today. Ended up going to a 2-year college. My thought was the Ohio State. Back then it was OSU. Of going on to school, and I had a very good counselor that helped me. So I went on to a 2-year college. Then after the 2-year college, I went on to a 4-year school. Completely changed my major. And after I graduated from the 4-year university in Indiana, I went on to the military, served 3 years, come back, went to work for the people that sent me to school, Ford Motor Company, for about 5 years. After that, I left Ford. I went to work for Thompson Consumer Electronics, RCA, became GE. And it was during that point in time I started teaching as an adjunct for Indiana University in Kokomo, Indiana. I decided, you know, this is good. I want to help students. I want to help students, young people, any age people, to learn from some of the things that I had made mistakes and learned from, but I could pass that on to them. And so I got really involved in that. So when I retired from business and industry, I started teaching. I started teaching full-time at a 2-year school. And I'm going to go real quick. I went from there to Nebraska, moved to associate dean, on to dean, went to Wisconsin, became a director of a campus, moved from Wisconsin to Michigan, from Michigan to North Dakota, was a president, came back to Ohio after 24 years being gone. And I can tell you, I love being back in Ohio. Ohio is my home state. I spent a lot of time up in this area when I was working in industry. Glad to be here at Owens Community College, a great school. Took on a lot of challenges, knew those challenges when I took them on, but that's what I like to do. Build a great team, enjoy being here, and thank you for inviting me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.
So I think sort of to follow up to Dr. Bauer's, what's interesting is that academic leaders tend to move from university to university or from different places, and you'll sort of hear that as a consistent theme. So I grew up in Southern California, went to Cornell in New York for my PhD, taught for Cornell in New York City. From there, I taught as a faculty member in Nebraska at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. From there, I went to Auburn University, and I moved up really the ranks. I had been an associate dean, moved into the provost's office, and wound up as interim provost From there, went to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, was the provost there for 6 years, and started here 4.5 months ago. So it's been fantastic. We have had a wonderful fall, so thank you all very much. University of Toledo has been remarkable, and part of what I love about that university and this community is it ties into my academic background as an urban planner, and the way that we have the opportunity to interact with the city and the broader region is part of what I'm excited about. So I was thinking about the chamber here. You know, I was a faculty member at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce and did strategic planning, stakeholder group meetings, and put together a plan, worked with the State Department of Human Services, worked with transportation entities throughout the state, councils of government, in putting together plans. It's what I like to do, and from an academic perspective, looking at the needs of individuals and communities and how do we plan for them. For the university, what excites me is we've got this great comprehensive research university that does everything from arts and humanities, social sciences, to pharmacy, law, engineering, med school. We have so many opportunities, and how we continue to position ourselves within this region, and as we'll talk about, collaborate amongst universities is what excites me about this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I grew up in a very humble beginning in southern West Virginia, but there are a lot of Appalachian migrants right here in Ohio. And so, needless to say, after attending West Virginia University for 2 degrees, I went to the University of Cincinnati, received my PhD there and in urban geography, but had an emphasis in urban planning too. And so I do think that's great preparation for a university presidency as you move through the ranks. And I went to Wright State, was a faculty member there for 26 years. While there, I was on an intergovernmental assignment to direct the Office of University Partnerships for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, where I ran $25 million worth of programs to colleges and universities across the country. And returned to Wright State, became a dean. I left there, became dean at my alma mater, West Virginia University, and then went down to Auburn as provost and vice president for academic affairs. Had the opportunity to work with Dr. Gaber there.
We met there.
And you never know where you're going to land, and then as a bird keeps circling, I circled back to Ohio. And I've spent most of my adult life in Ohio, and I think it's a great state. It's a state that I've had the opportunity to work a great deal in the community, especially in Dayton. I initiated and worked with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce to do the one and only regional strategic plan for Dayton to encourage regional cooperation. So I hope we can do the same right here in Northwest Ohio, and with all these university presidents and the community college president right here, I'm very confident that we can. So it's great to be here, and I really enjoy working with all of you to build this region's future.
I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and my academic path is a little different because I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry and math, and then decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in the lab, so I went and got a master's and a PhD in religion, which is and much of my life has been those kind of strange left turns. Then I taught high school, then I taught college, and was starting along what I would call the traditional path that many presidents go, which is kind of dean, provost, et cetera, but ended up being asked by my president to become a fundraiser, which was the last thing I wanted to do as a religion professor, but he was a friend, and so I did it, and then did 6 years as a vice president for advancement, doing PR and marketing and fundraising and construction of buildings and all of those kinds of things, which led me to becoming a president. So, and I think that what I loved, I went to a small liberal arts school. I did my PhD in theology at Vanderbilt. I really enjoy what the liberal arts stand for. That is this ability to kind of look across many disciplines, learn things, in different areas, and I think it's been good for me. And at Lourdes, you know, we're much smaller than any of the other 3 institutions here, but we try to give that practical professional preparation coupled with a liberal arts background so that people can think well as they do their professions. And I'm really proud to be here, especially with these 3 great presidents. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you all for that introduction. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to describe for you the pace kind of this facilitation that we're going to be doing. And what I'll do is I'll pose a question to one of you, and then the rest of you feel free to chime in afterwards. So to kick things off, this first question is for Dr. Mazey, and it's a 2-parter, so I'm glad you're sitting down. What's one piece of advice you wish you would have given yourself when you were a younger professional? And part 2 is there any advice you received along the way that helped shape your journey?
Yeah. Well, there's a problem with the sound system, which is very appropriate, because my advice is don't ever be afraid to fail or to make a mistake, because you always learn from it and you can take it with you the rest of your life. And so mistakes and failure are just part of life, and be sure you use them in a wise way. And the second part to that question was, what do you want to do as a leader? Always do the right thing, and always ask yourself, every morning I get up and I say, what is the best thing and the right thing I can do for BGSU today? And don't let others try to always tell you how. There are many times in life others think they can do your job better than you can, but you always know if you do the right thing, you're going to be a success.
Excellent, thank you. Drs. Gaber, Livingston, anyone want to follow up on that?
I'd like to jump in on that. You know, I wish that back at the time that I was going through my career, and especially whether it was in industry or even in education, that I would have had the opportunity that you have today, that you're able to build a network of friendship. The first time it happened to me, I took, at that time, it was the beginning of what we call online today, and I was at the University of Nebraska, and that's where I received my PhD. Was asked to get into this, what they called online, and it was kind of scary. I said, I don't know if I want this. I like this classroom. But that is when I really started developing a network of people, because there was people from all over. It was global. And to have something as local as this, for you to be able to come together, I wished I would have had those opportunities at that point in time, and I didn't. Something that I learned along the way, and this goes back to the industry, I had a gentleman in the engineering at one of the locations when I first started out, and I came into him and I was talking with him, and I said, do you have any advice that you could give me as far as getting to know this particular facility? And he said, yes, every day you come in, you go out there and thank those people for your job, because it's the people out there on those front lines that make it happen. And so I did, and I got to know the people, and I got to know the people very well. And so I've carried that on today. So I think, to me, that's the important things.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I guess I'd add and tell you to have confidence within yourself and be bold. And sort of particularly as a younger person, and a younger me, you know, somebody would say, oh, you ought to think about doing this, or you might think about doing this. And it takes a while of doing things before you feel the confidence to be able to take on some of these things. But I would tell you that opportunities don't come along every day. And as an opportunity comes along, there are some. I actually called someone into my office the other day and said, I want you to think about doing this on campus. And he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. I don't know, what am I gonna, you know, and I thought, this is like one of those once in a lifetime, once a year, once a decade kind of opportunity. And when you have that moment, or when you see it, or when it's presented to you, you have to think, and you have to think about, what does that mean in terms of my family, and how does this balance and all of this. But opportunities come along often for a reason, and you sometimes have to be bold and say, geez, I could do this, why not? Let's think about that, and sort of put yourself out there, because people are going to occasionally give you those opportunities, and if you don't accept them, then that will stop at some point also.
Yeah, and I would second, kind of what I was saying before. I agree 100%. Sometimes taking the lateral move, especially at this point in your career, is the best thing you can do to go into another part of the business, because you will learn a lot more than just oftentimes staying in the same kind of path. The other thing I would say, that I wish somebody would have told me earlier on, some of us PhDs, we take ourselves too seriously. You have to be willing to fail. If you are not willing to fail, you just can't, you can't actually be great, I don't think, if you're not willing to fail. And so part of failing well is laughing at yourself. And I took myself too seriously for too long, and now I just find myself kind of a joke. So, and that's okay, I can kind of laugh. I mean, it's just like, that's who I am. This is who Dave is, and you take the good with the bad. And I try to take the good with the bad in myself. And I think it's just good for your overall health, too, to just kind of, take a breath. It's not that big a deal.
Keep your sense of humor and get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah, exactly. Good summary.
And I thought you would say, David, that you would have thought about chemistry before you made that turn.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. Well, so many times I just have totally gone off the deep end. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. All good answers. Thank you. I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit because Dr. Bauer got me thinking about the future of higher education. It prompted me to kind of ask this question. This one will actually be posed to Dr. Gaber. How do you feel how higher education will change kind of in the future, in the next decade or so? Where do you see higher education going?
Oh, I think it's, we talk about online. I don't think that bricks and mortar will ever completely go away. And you think about the classic universities, and I've seen all sorts of literature about universities will go away and all education will be online. I'm not sure I agree with that. I do think there may be some downsizing of universities, but there's going to be, or consolidation. But I think in some ways universities are, and you all think about your experience, at that point in your lives, it's an opportunity to leave your family, spend a few years in a sort of secure environment, figure things out, and then move on and make progress. So that's a positive thing about a traditional university. What do we know? We know that there's going to be much more need for internationalization. We know there's going to be much more need for online education. So, discussion about will books go away and all books are, on your iPad or that sort of thing. I think somebody else can jump in. We know that that's all sorts of speculation as to where we're going, and that's what when I talk to people, and you all are at the point where you need to be thinking about, what's 20 years from now look like. And I gave an example of one time I was giving a talk. So I was in graduate school in the mid-1980s. Now, many of you weren't born then, I understand that. But a young man who was I lived in a graduate student apartment at that point, and I said, well, what are you working on? He was an engineering student. I'm working on this incredible thing. Wouldn't it be cool? We're talking about maybe having telephones you can take with you. I'm like, wow, what an idea, right? Okay, so you all think about it. And at the time, that was something he was working on with a corporate entity, and they were working on what does that look like. And we had the big, you could take the big bag or that sort of thing. But it wasn't something you'd put in your pocket or be able to have with you. So we have to be thinking about what does it look like 20 or 30 years from now, and that's what collectively our job is. So it's going to be much more flexible, and we're going to have to think about what some of those things are. And research, everybody should leave, as you're in your companies or you're thinking about school, everybody should leave and think about how do we prepare ourselves for innovation within our corporate setting, within our, research group, because it's going to innovate and it'll continue to innovate. And that's, we're talking about it at the university, but I can't tell you exactly because it will evolve over time.
Right. Our vision statement starts out in the spirit of innovation. And innovation means change to meet the needs. And that's what we know. There's going to be tremendous change in the future. And technology will be on the forefront of that change. Right. So we in universities, what you hear today is the flipped classroom. When you come to the classroom, you've already heard the lecture, you've done the reading, and you come there to learn. really get intensive into your learning. And learning that's what it's all about, and I agree with Sharon. The bricks and mortar is still going to be there, but there'll be a lot done through technology, and we'll continue to see that happen because that's the world that you live in, and so we have to live in it too.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's not very often that we get a declined
Well,
answer.
it could say a lot, but
Well, I'll tell you what, this next question will be posed to you.
Great.
Yeah. So we, in the business community, understand our role, not only with the community, but also with our educators. So how can the business community assist and support educators in making sure students are better prepared for the workforce?
yeah, I think it's crucial, and all of you that are out there, one thing that this networking does, it connects you to each other. It's also really important for all the universities, and I would say high schools, grade schools, that you take your talents and try to create a network for your alma mater, for the high school that you went to, for the high school that your kids go to. One of the critical things, in addition to, I do think that universities will still be residential in some way, shape, or form, but they need to be more broadly networked, which means students need live experience in the real world. So getting internships is key. And one of the challenges that I think businesses have is how to balance the profit issue with what is on some level downtime in terms of teaching an intern, right? So if you were just worried about the profit margin, you would say, I don't have time to have an intern because it's going to take time away from me being out with my clients, doing this, doing that. I think it's really important that businesses look at how do we develop talent over a decade or two or three, and part of that is making sure you work with college students to offer them internship opportunities, that you volunteer to come into classrooms and teach a class on your field. We do a lot of that where we'll bring in a person for just an hour from the field and they come in and teach a class on marketing or whatever. And I think that's incredibly valuable, and giving that time will actually enhance your professional field significantly.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, David is so correct. They need to get some of the real life experience out there. And I can tell you it's very important, especially with our institution. I'm going to give you a couple examples. And I'll go back to industry. There was times when I was in industry, we could not find the people we needed. And so we basically started our own schools within our industry. And then after a while, we said, this is not our business. This is not what we do. It's what somebody else needs to do. So we had to buy into, we needed to buy into with other academic institutions, and say, okay, here's what we can do. I'll give you a couple examples, and we're actually moving on those. I'm going to take John Deere and Caterpillar, very huge in the construction business. We have great partnerships with them. They bring the students to us. We do not recruit. They want people in their dealership that are critical thinkers, not just being able to apply the technology skills, when I say the technology skills as far as mechanical, electrical, and those, but to be able to be team players. And so they go through very extensive interviews. They send them to us for 2 years and say, now teach them the rest. And that's what we do. People ask us, and I got to share this with you, if you hear that our nursing program has issues, we do not. I made a visit out to Pittsburgh to talk to Mr. Blade last year to say, that is over. We have one of the best ones in the country. People will ask us, well, how come you don't have more numbers? We're capped, and I want to go back to what David said. Clinicals. Hospitals are in dire need of nurses. But if they're working 12 and 16 hours a day, it's very difficult to bring someone in to provide them the understanding and the knowledge base that they need to know about the health services. But when you take a look at it, is so important, whether it's in nursing, whether it's in business, insurance. We're looking at insurance and logistics of working people in, because we are a major distribution center here in the United States, one of the largest, of being able to get people to get in there and get that experience while they're going to school. So I agree with David wholeheartedly, and I think the others too. They need that experience, and that's what we need help with.
Okay. Dr. Mazey?
I think what we need to look at this in terms of the future workforce of America as the baby boomers retire, there is going to be such a demand for an educated professional workforce, and you are the future here. And so as much as we can serve the business community, serve the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sectors, that's what universities have got to do in community colleges, and think about the future demographics of the country and the need for that future workforce.
Dr. Mazey, along those lines, this next question has to do with that demand. With that demand also comes a higher price tag. So how should society deal with the ever-rising cost of higher education?
Well, you know, the governor of the great state of
But you got
Ohio
that
works on that for us on a continuous basis. In fact, we just have, the governor's just released an affordability and efficiency task force report, and the state legislature has certainly strongly supported that this past year. We're very pleased. In the state of Ohio, we're one of the few states across the country where the state legislature gave us an increase in state share of instruction, and at the public universities and community college froze our tuition for 2 years. We at BG froze ours last year, so that's 3 years in a row that tuition is flat at Bowling Green State University. And I think that's important. I think equally important is implementing then the latest task force report recommendations, and many of those are to see how we join together and create greater efficiencies among the public universities in Ohio. And there's a lot that can be done there. We've certainly done that at BG by bringing Accenture in and looking at how we can reduce our cost. And so cost and efficiency is extremely important, but at the same time, what I think that how many people in this room went to college on a scholarship?
Exactly.
Okay? Yes. And if it hadn't been for that private giving and those scholarships, many of us wouldn't be sitting where we are today. And so it's important, again, to make sure that we continue to build that private giving. And I've seen, you know, the statistics on the baby boomers. I'm one of those baby boomers. As the baby boomers tend to go on right here, there will be trillions of dollars that change hands in this country. And we need to make sure that some of that goes to the future students that are in higher education today.
Okay. Would anybody else like to chime in or add to that?
I'd like to go back to my other statement when I said we need to keep the cost down. We need to get those people that need people
That's
involved in an in-kind way that they can help. So if they're going to the University of Toledo, or if they're going to the University of Bowling Green, Lourdes, or us, and they need people, then how can they provide those scholarships or endowments of some type so that those students can be able to attend and get their degree? The other thing is working very close with our K-12 schools. Getting students college and career ready, so important. If we can make that happen, more scholarship opportunities come about for those students, so very important that we do that.
Makes sense. Thank you. This next question, we'll kind of open it up to all the different presidents to chime in, so you'll have to fight over it. Are there any plans? We've got a couple big games coming up here in the future. And I'm sitting over here. I just want everybody in the audience to know these two chose to sit next to each other. It was their own free will. We didn't arrange this ahead of time. So yeah, congratulations on that. But as far as your institutions are concerned, are there any major collaborations you know, planned in the future, or can you share with us any past successes that you've had?
Well, I guess I'll start with a couple things, and I'm going to start with the game, though, because we've talked about this, and we have a friendly competition then between the two of us for the UT-BG SU game. And we have, whoever the losing president, will have to serve lunch to the other president and the president of the Student Government Association and the president of the Graduate Student Council in their office while wearing the winning school's t-shirt.
Wow.
So we both, of course, I said, we have quotes that are going to come out in our release about this that I look forward to seeing her serving lunch, and hers is, I've already picked out the t-shirt for Sharon to wear. So the two of us are like, okay, fighting words, right?
Right, we're ready for it.
So we are very cognizant that it's a big game coming up, and we're looking forward to it. And then what I'd say is all four of us have already talked about how can we work together to help the region. And we've met to discuss it. We actually put together with a few of the other community colleges involved a table that we've shared actually with the Regional Growth Partnership about what are the programs that we offer, what are special research areas that we have, so that, and certainly if the Chamber's interested in even seeing it, because what we want to say is here are the institutions of higher education, here's what we have to offer the community, here's the way that we can work together. And then we're also talking about how might we partner. So we've had opportunities to talk about what are tracks or programs that either I might work with Owens on, or I might work with BG on, or these sorts of things, because we recognize that it's important. And in some cases, there's not the necessity for two separate programs, but in fact, a program might be strengthened if we think about how to work together.
Excellent.
I'd just like to add, and I just learned this morning, is for next Tuesday evening, BGSU will have 40 watch parties across the country, but 24 of those will be in collaboration with UT, all across the country, that they can get together and watch that great ball game. So that we're already collaborating out there. We're just waiting to see who's going to win it, and may the best team win. But and we'll see. Had a good night last night for BG. But in any case, I think what is most important is that we continue to collaborate on the academic programming for the region and to serve the region. And so BG and UT have had a long history, long before we got here, of collaboration in terms of the nursing program, number of the health science programs. But we continue to talk about that. We've started collaborating, and we'll sign probably in the next month a agreement with Owens. And so what we all have to think about is how important of a role higher education can play in building the region's economy. And we need to do that in the most efficient and effective manner that we can.
Excellent.
If I can add to that, it's so true what they're saying, and we've been working on that for some time. When a student comes in to us at Owens and says, okay, if I start here, where can I go? Well, I don't want to say Ohio University or Ohio State. I want that student to stay here.
In the region.
So I say, we've created pathways, and that's what we're creating. A pathway to UT, a pathway to Lourdes, a pathway to BGSU. It's so important because they want that pathway. It's like a menu. Now you think about a student going through high school, going through the K-12 system, and as soon as they graduate and they get out, that whole structure changes. Where do I go from here? And if they're at the four-year university or at the two-year college, they're trying to think, well, what am I going to do as far as my education? So important, and we're working on a number of those things, which we call memorandums of understanding, contractual agreements, whatever you want to call it, but the whole key is for our student success. Now, I want to touch about this ball game, okay?
He's going to be there.
Okay, yeah. See, what happens is they come to me and they say, why don't your students come to me? And would you like to come to the game? But I got to tell you what happened. About 3 months ago, my board chair, said, okay, I got tickets for you for a game. He said, I want you to come with me. I said, okay, so you're at BGSU? Yeah. He said, but I want you to come to the game. I said, well, who's playing? He said, BGSU, UT. I said, okay. He said, what are you going to wear? I said, I'm wearing Owens. I'm not getting caught in the mess of this. So, but that's the excitement that it brings. That's the excitement it brings.
Together.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're excited about it, but it's so important, students.
And just one quick thing. I think that we have had partnerships with all three institutions. One of the keys is meeting the students where they're at. So for instance, we're a smaller campus, more of a kind of, family feeling. Not that they don't have that, but they just have larger numbers. But just to talk about athletics on that end, many of the students that come to Lourdes could not make it on the UT basketball team or the BG basketball team because they're literally not good enough, but they want to play, and that's nothing wrong. I mean, there's different levels, right? But they want to play college basketball. But they also then may want to, and this is where we have collaborations, they may want to then be able to go on and do a graduate degree. We have a collaboration in public health with UT. So they can go on and do an undergraduate degree in public health at Lourdes and then have that transfer and even do some courses already on their undergraduate level at UT in that partnership. And what that allows us to do is attract a student from Chicago who wants to go to a small liberal arts school and doesn't want to go to a school of 18,000 to the region, but we then become a feeder for BG or UT on the graduate level. And that's a winner for us because we can't afford to hire all those faculty on the graduate level, but it's also a winner for the other, whoever we're partnering with in that specific degree program. We're more attractive because they know they can get into UT public health if they have this GPA. That helps us, but it also helps them. And so it's a win-win, and we do that certainly with Owens. Somebody that wants to do 2 years at Owens can come to Lourdes to finish out. We have a lot of, again, athletic transfers that do 2 years and then 2 years at Lourdes and have their 4 years of eligibility. So there's a lot of great partnerships. And the last thing I would say about this is, and we've mentioned this, but one of the things that is challenging is that, and I'm becoming an insider, but I've only been here 2 years. People drive by Toledo for higher ed. So if you just view it as a product, people drive from Chicago to Pittsburgh. They drive from Chicago to Columbus. They drive from Chicago to Ann Arbor, and they don't stop in Toledo for higher ed. And we need to do a better job.
That's right.
We need to challenge ourselves to put Toledo on the map in terms of, that is Northwest Ohio, is a place you want to go to for higher ed, because there are a dozen really great institutions in this region, and what we need to do is have more families stop here to see 4 or 5 colleges. Right? They should see all 4 of us and Heidelberg and Tiffin and Adrian when they come, right? Because they know this is the place to go for higher ed and not go to Pittsburgh or Cincinnati. And they have great schools there too, but we want them here. Because all of you, some of you came from somewhere else, went to school here, got an internship, got a job, and that adds to the quality of our economy because you are all brilliant. Right?
There you go. That's good. That's good, David.
Yeah. Well, shucks, Dr. Livingston, you're not too bad yourself.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we have time at the end to open it up for questions. So we'll be sure to do that here in a little bit. For now, I'm going to pose another question, and this one is to Dr. Bauer. This has to do with developing future leaders. So again, all panelists feel free to chime in. So how is your institution developing future leaders? And how are you preparing them with the necessary skills, such as soft skills for interviewing and networking, and preparing them really for graduation and ultimately the workforce?
Very good. Now, you're talking about my staff of people, or you're talking about students? Students. You know, one of the major challenges coming from the governor now, and it's very, very good, is about career services. And this is right at the top of the list, and it's for students coming in. We have so many students that will come in. Again, I go back to what I was saying earlier. How many of you changed your majors when you start? Very good. That happens. And so what we're trying to do is get the student focused immediately. Well, we try to do that as far as other opportunities. The critical thinking side of it. We have ambassadors we put in place. We started this 3 years ago. Most of the universities had ambassadors for many, many years. So we looked at what are some of the things that we need to do at the college to be able to prepare students. Interview process, resumes. It's amazing when you first start talking with students, especially coming to our college, about building a resume, and they say, well, you know, I'm just out of high school. I didn't, no, we want you to start thinking about it now, and we're going to help you along the way. Because every little experience that you have, if it's a summer job, if it's after-school job, or those folks that are full-time somewhere thinking about moving on to something different, so that's why they're going into a program. So these are things that we have because we did not have in place. And we've started developing those for our students. And we know that there is such a need out there, and that's what we're going to continue to work on.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
You know, we developed a few years ago when I came a one-credit course in leadership that people can take their junior year. And then we have this what's called first-year experience. So it's a freshman experience that all the freshmen have to go through. And those people that take the leadership course as juniors become mentors in that class. So they're a senior in the fall when the next year's freshmen come in, and then they have 15 students, 18 students that they become the mentor for. And so they develop those skills, and it's a 4-credit or a class for credit, but it's only 1 credit their junior, and then they get the other credits, 2 more credits the next fall when they serve as a mentor in that next class. So those are some of the skills in terms of learning how to mentor younger people just to be a student, right? Which is not much different than when you have to mentor a new employee, right? How do you do that? Because you've been through it and now you can help them. So I think they're really important, and career services is key for the future. And that goes to the internships and all of those kinds of things.
Anyone else?
We at BG, students are required to live on campus the first 2 years. And so we have over 300 student organizations. And we have a lot of leadership training in those student organizations. I mean, one of the key things that we've been doing for over 25 years is this dance marathon.
Yeah.
You know, it really raises money for Children's Miracle Network. And I mean, it's just a great cause. And I think that builds leadership skills and organizational skills of our students. And as you say, then the career services, we're putting a $2 million investment into that and putting it into our student union, which has about 8,000 students go through there a day, so it'll be front and center in that student union. And then we find, and I know the College of Business is represented here, and a number of our deans have special programs for students that really help them with the soft skills,
Right.
and the interviewing skills and other skills that they're going to need to be a success once they graduate. So it is not only about the time that they're on campus, but when they leave campus to ensure that success.
And I just point out, we're very similar. So you might have read in the paper, we just passed that you'll spend 2 years on campus, because what do you know? The literature says if you live on campus, you have a greater rate of retention and graduation, and that's important for us. So within the residence halls, there's a lot of work on leadership. We also have the Levis Leadership Program, which has 34 students that go through a leadership training program. And then within various colleges, in our College of Business, we have the CLAR Academy. So they're named after donors who have given resources that want to take a cohort of students and be able to prepare them for leadership, either campus-wide or within their discipline.
Fantastic. Okay, this next question, we'll go ahead and pose this to Dr. Mazey. Speaking of preparing leaders for the world, once they get out there, how can the alumni have their greatest impact on their alma mater?
Well, I think it's extremely important for us to connect with our alums as institutions. As I mentioned, we have 170,000 right here in the great state of Ohio. So alumni need to contribute in terms of time, talent, and treasure. And you know, the treasure part is hopefully when you're capable and you can, we want you to give back. But if you can't, your time is extremely important. Mentoring the students of today, talking with them, and the talent that you come to the classrooms. We've already discussed that. We have been very fortunate in some of our alums. One of them is Shantanu Narayan, that is the CEO of Adobe Systems. He takes 2 of our students as interns in Palo Alto, California, at Adobe headquarters every year. So these are opportunities, and we try to make as many of those types of connections as we can of our students with our alums. Because over time, what I've always found in terms of the giving, when alums connect with students is when they give back to their institution and help for those future scholarships and in other ways with that private giving for the institution.
I'd just like to chime in and say for each of you, no matter where you went to school and graduated, I'd encourage you to get connected with your alma mater and to think about how do you give of your time and resources. So Dr. Mazey kindly said when you're able to, and what I'd say is for any of you, even if you can give $5 or $10, and I've been out and speaking to alumni associations across the country since I've gotten here, one of the variables in U.S. News and World Report's rankings of institutions, and I say this because I don't think people know, one of the things, they have several variables, and the way that they decide on the ranking is what percentage of your alumni give back to the university. So it's not what dollar value, it's what percent. So if you haven't been giving and you're a part of the alumni of an institution, if you give $5 or $10 or whatever you can, and I mean that sincerely, you know, everywhere I've gone, I've said if you give $10 or $10 million, and there's a big spectrum in between, but if you're not participating, that variable is to look at what's your alumni participation rate, how well are you connecting with your alums. So if you want to know more, certainly you start becoming involved, you connect with the college, whether you're on an advisory board, whether you start going to alumni functions. There are so many ways to reconnect and to speak in a class. I mean, the universities here and the colleges, we get excited when people want to be a part of it because it helps us and it makes it more exciting for other students to want to come here when they know, particularly, that young alums are involved, because it's a difficult time in your lives to be involved when you're working on your career as well. So I'd tell you, if you can think about giving back whatever small amount, because it's important in the universities to think about, and then giving of whatever time, whether that's through your college's advisory board or a young alum group or that sort of thing, it's valuable to the institutions.
You know, it was exciting when I got to the college and I was looking at the number of students that we've had go through the school in our 50 years, and I come to find out we have the largest alum association for a two-year college in the state that is active. And one of them is in here right now, and I could look right at him. Maybe I shouldn't put him on the spot. He's been very supportive and very active. But Tom, I got to say, you've been very supportive to our alum association. 30,000. We have 30,000, and most of those people are very, very local. And we call on them. And again, it's what Sharon was saying. You know, if they give $5, if they give 10, or if they give their time. And that is so important. And a lot of times, those alums will call up and say, oh, by the way, I was talking to so-and-so in industry. You need to meet this person. You need to talk with them and build that. They build that network for us. So it's very, very important. So if you can't give money, give time.
Ditto.
And it can add to your own networking.
Yeah. And the networking is key. I mean,
Yeah,
people ask me about it, and I say, you know, you want to become like the Notre Dame Mafia. So the Domer Mafia is incredible. And what I mean by that is they are just a network, and they make sure that their people succeed. If you're an alum and you work in a business and there's 10 resumes and they're all equally qualified and you have an opportunity, you will make sure that another Domer gets that job. Because that's how they believe about it. They believe we owe each other. You can do that for each other, and it makes a difference, right? Now, you can be competing because 5 of you in the office come from 5 different institutions. But my point is that networking makes a difference for a school, right? And the other thing I would say is when your alma mater gets better, your degree's worth more.
That's right. That's right.
Okay? It is self-interest, right? I believe in self-interest. It is self-interest on your part to make sure that your school is better in U.S. News and World Report, is better reputation in the community. Because if BG is viewed here in 1990 and here in 2020, and you got your degree in 1995, in 2020 your degree is actually worth more in the marketplace. Right. So the more you invest in them, the more you're really investing in yourself. So
It's a good plug.
That is a good plug.
It's a good plug.
Very good plug.
Sarah, we want to open it up for questions. Is that correct? A couple more? Okay. So
No, I think-
we've got a question here, and we'll open it up to each of our presidents here.
I think she meant a couple questions.
Oh, a couple questions for
Is
the
it only
audience?
about 5?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you
Sorry.
meant a couple more.
One or two.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open it up to the audience. I think we have a couple questions. Yes, you in the back?
Earlier today, Wendy Gramson gave a good talk about the Chamber of Commerce, and one of the big things she focused on was that their goals are to attract and retain talent. Maybe you could speak to how each of your universities sort of contribute to the overall culture of Northwest Ohio and the way that that helps retain talent here by, offering free lectures for open to the public or music performances or, we even talked about athletics earlier this, so that gets the whole community excited.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more vibrant. So maybe you can talk a little bit about maybe certain programs that are designed, especially the collaborative, obviously, but certain programs that maybe working towards helping to retain the intellectual capital that we have here today.
It's kind of a loaded question.
Well, I'll start off, but if you look at the region, we've got a strong central city, and we have institutions within the city, and then we have the suburbs, and we have the more rural areas. For us, we're in that more rural area, but these small towns like Bowling Green, the university is the town is the university, and so every evening, if you were to retire there, if you were to live there, there's probably something virtually free that you can do at the university. And it would all be impacting your intellectual environment. And so it could be lectures, but as you say, we're very strong in the arts. So, last week we had people from all over the region in for the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, right? And so put on by our students, it was a great performance. And so it's those types of events that continuous on campus, I think that on all of our campuses, that really enrich the quality of life, which is so important in terms of attracting future business and industry to this region. So probably what we don't do well enough is coordinate it all, right? And so people really know what is available within the region, and and really promote ourselves.
So I just want to chime in and say, obviously, there's athletic events and there's on campus and there's. I'm gonna take it in a slightly different direction. And you had Randy Ostra here earlier talking to you all. So the University of Toledo's College of Medicine signed an academic affiliation with ProMedica. The theory behind that academic affiliation really was we have a moderately sized medical center right behind us, and we were a net exporter of residents. So when you go into the pool, students who were in medical school went into the pool, and we would lose more students to Cincinnati and Ohio State and other places. And by signing the academic affiliation, we will be affiliated with a larger hospital, Toledo Hospital and Toledo Children's Hospital, and we will be building something between our College of Medicine and ProMedica and those hospitals. And the goal is to create a health environment economy here in Toledo that is on the par so that you don't have to go to Ann Arbor for health services. We actually now, by taking ProMedica Health and taking the University of Toledo's College of Medicine, we have something bigger, and that residents will want to be here because it's a bigger opportunity. And so I think that's part of the theory behind it is, how do we make it so people want to be here and there's not a brain drain? That was part of the theory behind why this was advantageous to the university, why ProMedica saw it as a positive, and why we think it will help this region. And ultimately, the goal is that we're competing with Ann Arbor and Cleveland and Columbus because we've got a concentration of health services. And when you bring this together and you bring the talent, other healthcare providers, other services will want to co-locate. So that's what we have to continue to think about, is what are these other things that are making it so people want to be here? And clearly then, if we're going to group in that way, we all, as educational leaders, have to think about what are the other pieces that we need to have in place to continue to strengthen and solidify the economy and make sure we have the things that make physicians want to be here and make other healthcare leaders want to be in this region. So, I mean, I think it's a really positive thing, but it's exactly what you're saying is how are we working to build up the economy locally and not lose people?
And just one other thing that is, and I agree, and I think I actually think this agreement is going to be beneficial to all of us. I had people on my campus who, when it first was announced, they were, oh, I can't believe that happened. And why did Randy do that with UT? As if they do it with us. 'Cause we don't have a medical school.
I was going to say, with your medical school, right?
Right, exactly. but my point of that is that what I said to them is what this is going to do is create this very high-end set of residencies, which is going to require more nurses for our nursing school and more, so that it's going to create a bigger healthcare economy, which is going to raise all of the higher ed chefs. The second thing I want to say is there have been many articles recently in the last 3 or 4 years about how more and more people that are retiring, and as we said, a lot of baby boomers retiring, want to not necessarily be on a golf course, but want to be near a university.
That's right.
They want to retire to a college town. And why do they want to retire to a college town? Because they want to go to a play, they want to go to the symphony, they want to hear a lecture, they want to go to a game, and so that actually is not only good because it keeps people here as opposed to them going to Florida, but it also raises the property values so the property values in Sylvania, I believe, go up when Lourdes gets better, right? Because you want to live in a college town. And that's good, and it's true in Bowling Green, and it's true in Toledo, right around Toledo. Then you can walk to a lecture, you can walk to it. It's good for those property values. So that is a positive thing for the chamber.
I just want to give one example of that. My first year at BG, I met one of our alums at an event in Florida. He lived at Myrtle Beach, and the next week he came up and went to 2 basketball games, a hockey game, and he said, I'm moving to BG because I want to be with all these young people instead of the older population.
There you go.
So from Myrtle Beach to BG.
Quite a transition. That's right. We want to do one more then, I believe. One more question from the crowd? Yes, sir.
So as a caveat, that question, connection with the overall community, not just with business leaders. And we had CEO of Medical Engineer talking about how development will address the greater needs of the area. But there are lots of people in the Northwest Ohio area, the Toledo area, that do not get the opportunity to go to university or college. And there's whole questions of access and health issues of those demographics. And creating a stronger Northwest Ohio destination, it seems to me would be addressing the greater community. And maybe you guys could talk, how are you addressing the community and bringing everyone up as leaders of huge institutions in this area?
I'll start out on that one. You know, when I'm, as I told you, a geographer, so I always look at the demographics. And when I looked at Ohio, if you look at Ohio, on the average, the nation has about 30% of its population with a college degree. In Ohio, it's 26%. In Northwest Ohio and Northeast Ohio, it's 24%. And in the city of Toledo, it's 17%. And so there's much work for us all to do here. And we have a very strong College of Education at BGSU. And so recently, the provost and the dean of education and I went to visit Dr. Durant, and we talked about how we want to really partner with him to, instead of, because it had been proposed to us to build a STEM high school at BG, said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to partner and build and make sure that we use the STEM high school in the city of Toledo and the STEAM junior high and the Toledo School of the Arts, and see what we can do to partner with them to make it richer for all the students right in the city of Toledo. So I think we need to do more of that in the future. And when I was at HUD, that was a real emphasis. How do universities reach out to those most stressed areas of their community and see how they can help and ensure that the next generation of those students and they're coming up have the same opportunities that we have. And for our institutions, I mean, 23% of our students at BG are still first-generation college students, and 20% of our students are students of color. So we're very, very proud of those statistics, and it's a way to continue to enrich the student body there and to enrich then the future generations if we do more outreach in terms of the K through 12 system. And I know you
I was
just
gonna
received
say
a grant. I saw that.
Well, so similarly, we're doing that also. We just received a $10 million NASA grant to do K-12 education in STEM, but we're also working in the public schools, both in teacher education, but our College of Medicine is working. So when you were talking about healthcare, they're working actually in public schools also and doing that. So I think your point is well made, but we're doing it probably within our mission areas, which is educating our students, but making sure that we're reaching out to the broader community so that they're not doing it in a vacuum, but that they're working within the community to help the entire community. So we do that, you know, through education, through medicine, and in a number of ways. Our pharmacy students do it also. So I think there are a number of opportunities. And part of being at the University of Toledo is understanding we have a strong connection with the city, just like everyone else here does, but we feel that sense of it is important to be out and be able to help. And part of when you're learning is how do we help in the broader community as well.
And I can add
go
to
ahead,
that.
Mike.
I can add to that as well. You know, and not any different than the other ones here on the stage. We're working with the K-12 system. Dr. Durant, we're working with multiple of the school systems around us. More importantly, here in about the last 4 or 5 months, I've been working with Dan Rogers. I don't know if you know Dan. He's the pastor of the Cherry Street Mission and Ministries, and we're working on a major project. There's over 1,000 people, either on low income, they've been incarcerated some, they've been without, but they want that start again. They want to be able to get a job. And if there's some things that we can put in place to make that successful for them, that's what we're going to do. And so we understand that, and again, we need to get those, the population that needs help up to that skill level so that they can get good jobs and be successful and be able to provide for their families. Very good question.
And I would just add one thing that all of us either require or really ask our students to be involved in service projects.
Right.
40,000 students between the you know, maybe more than that, but I was trying to calculate in my head, at least 40,000 students. The impact in terms of hours of service on the community of Toledo is massive.
It is.
Right? I mean, that is a huge amount of work that goes into trying to raise the level of just livability in this community for some of the poorest and most marginalized in our society, because students, you know, at Lourdes as a Franciscan institution, we require our students to do service. As again, many classes in other institutions, service learning is a big thing. But I think you underestimate the impact that has on the, you know, the poor and marginalized. And that means if all of our enrollments go up by 10%, you get 4,000 more students, and 4,000 more students who do, you know, 10 hours of work a year. The impact it has is really significant. These are idealistic, you know, you might have become jaded in the years that you've been in, but the students that come to us, you know, people always say, how do you work with those college students? They're so self-centered. They're not. They're incredibly idealistic, and they want to change the world. And so we, because we can force them, because they want what we have, they want the degree from us, right? All of us, they want our degree. We can say to them, you have to go out and make the world a better place. You have to go out and do service. And then they do it, and it makes all of our lives better.
Sure does.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much. Thanks again to all the panelists. Matt?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Did a great job.
And Thanks again for your time here tonight, all four of you, and Beth for facilitating this. On behalf of Epic Toledo and Yard Manufacturing, we have a nice trivet we'd like to present you as it matters where you make it, and you guys are all helping us make it matter. That concludes the 2016 summits. I'd like to... 2015, yeah, we're getting ready for 2016. we're very forward-thinking here at Epic.
You're a year ahead of you.
That concludes our 2015 Epic Summit. We'd like to see you all in the 3100 bar here for the social. Maybe I can get some of those selfies that I didn't get earlier. Other than that, anything else? You're free to go.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.